First up is The Marvels, and I'm going to start off by saying, please go into this film, if you plan on seeing this film, please go into it with an open mind. Like, don't go to this movie just because you are determined to hate it. It's really disappointing and frustrating to see people go into a movie just absolutely locked into an opinion and thinking nothing will ever change their mind because, you know, all art is subjective, obviously, and this is entertainment and fun, and there's no reason for, you know, this sort of level of vitriol. There have been movies where I have gone into it thinking, I'm absolutely going to hate this is not for me, and ending up actually really liking it. And there have been plenty of movies that I've been super stoked for and really not enjoying myself. So there is always a spectrum of taste and enjoyment, and we don't have to hate everything. So with all that being said, The Marvels. I went in with very low expectations because the last however many MCU films and superhero films, you know, whatever, I'm tired. I will admit it. I am suffering from superhero fatigue. It's been challenging. You know, some of it is probably some of the characters that they have been centering around aren't always my favorite, or, you know, there's so many characters, so it's not everyone can be your favorite. But there are a couple standouts in that I liked Shang-Chi. I liked Spider-Man No Way Home. Thor Love and Thunder, I enjoyed to a degree. I enjoyed parts of because I do love Taika Waititi's humor and Thor, but overall, I like many other people, I think, am tired. So going into The Marvels, I was like, okay, I'm just going to temper my expectations. You know, maybe this whole phase will make more sense and we'll look back on it and go, oh yes, oh my God, this was so brilliant that they planted these seeds. But because we don't know yet, it's hard to look at it from that perspective. I also will say, I remember enjoying Captain Marvel, the film. I could not describe the plot to you if my life depended on it. I mean, I could describe like bits and pieces, but thankfully The Marvels does kind of catch you up a little bit and you go, oh yeah, that was a thing. Sure. But it's nice to be able to sort of just hop in, actually, because, I don't love exposition, but if you need it, and they get things moving quickly. So that was great. The best thing, without a doubt, about The Marvels is Iman Vellani as Kamala Khan and Miss Marvel. She's just this breath of fresh air into the MCU in general. I really liked the series. You know, she's fun, she's joyous. The character is both of those things. She imbues it with that sort of personality. You know, it's very meta in that it's this character who admires all of these characters, and I would wonder if that character would ever suffer from superhero fatigue, but I doubt it. You know, she is just so good in this movie, and I love that they bring in her family into it. You know, it's great. That is the part of the story, I think, that excels the most. So then you've got her teaming up with Brie Larson, who is back as Carol Danvers, aka Captain Marvel, and then Teyonah Parris is playing the adult version of Monica Rambeau. The two of them, I think the actresses are fine. Obviously, Brie Larson is a great actress. I don't think their roles and the dynamic between the two of them is as strong as it could have been. You know, I think Brie has been instructed in this to deliver a very stoic performance, etc. Like the stage the character's at and all this stuff. Like, it makes sense, but it feels kind of one note and a little bit of a bummer, honestly. And I don't know if they needed to wallow in that as long as they did. And then you've got, her and Teyonah Parris sort of figuring out their, time-warped relationship. But then you've got this character of Iman Vellani as like this light, joyous beacon in the room. So she is just so great. And I'm excited to see more of her. You've also got, of course, Samuel L. Jackson as Nick Fury. Zoe Ashton joins as Dar Ben, who is a new character to us. She is a Kree, which are the blue ones, if you are like me and don't particularly remember or can't remember the Kree and Skrull and etc. She's a blue one who's not blue. I think this is not a spoiler, and I've said this so many times. Marvel has a antagonist issue. I won't even call them villains. But, unfortunately for her, she does the best she can with what she has, but this didn't break the mold on that. And then, you've got Park Seo-joon as Prince Yan, who he's in it for a bit. And somebody in my theater screamed so loud. Laura, I'm looking at you. But anyway, I had a good time. I went with friends, we had a fun time. I think we went into it open-minded. And like I said, with tempered expectations, which you really kind of should do for most movies anyway. It's short. It's an hour and 45 minutes. Nia DaCosta directed it. And I have to admit, I'm not super familiar with her other work just because it's all scary movies. And I don't like scary movies. I'm not good with scary movies. But I thought she did a fun job. The issues that plague the Marvels are the same issues that plague any other superhero film, pretty much. There's only so much you can do in terms of originality to fights. Like I said, the anti-hero thing or the antagonist thing is a little challenging, but there are some actually really fun moments in this film. So my hope is, also, it's a Marvel movie. You've invested how many decades of your life into this? Like, you're not going to skip this. So I hope you go in and try to have a good time. If you still don't end up loving it. That's okay. I haven't loved a lot of the last few Marvel movies or series and, whatever, but you move on and there's no reason to dwell in it. But like I said, had a pretty decent time. There are some fun moments. And also, like I said, Iman Vellani, what a delight. So I'm going to give it a 3.3 out of 5. The next film I have is called Dream Scenario, and there's a decent chance you have not heard about this one, but like the Marvels, actually, it might not be for everyone. That's okay. However, it was very much for me. Basically, you had me at Nic Cage. So Nic Cage stars as just a sort of kind of everyman, basically, called Paul Matthews, but that doesn't matter. I'm going to refer to him as Nic Cage for the rest of this. And he keeps appearing in people's dreams and sort of becomes mini famous that way. People see him there. He's a professor of like evolutionary biology or something along those lines. Not the type of person you necessarily dream about. This is one of the best Nic Cage performances I've seen. Like, it's a tempered Nic Cage, but he gets to show the range that you go like, yes, much like Brie Larson, like, this person's an Academy Award winner. I see. This person's an Academy Award winner. I see. So you kind of watch this character, and I love that it's this commentary on fame and, to a degree, cancel culture-ish. But I think the best thing about this film is that, this character isn't doing anything in order to appear in people's dreams. He just is the product of this. And so going on this journey of the ups and the downs and fame, effectively, and sort of the selfishness and all these things and the impact of that, I thought it was so great. The director is not someone I was super familiar with. His name's Christopher Borgli, and this is his first US-based film. But Nic Cage, wow, just so good in this. Julianne Nicholson plays his wife. Dylan Jalula, who it took me so long to recognize where she was from. She's from Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt. She's in it. Dylan Baker. And then Michael Cera and Kate Berlant are in it. This film perfectly captured advertising and influencer agencies. And I don't want to go more into it because I don't want to spoil it, but there was just this moment of perfection. I was like, this person has been in a room where these meetings have occurred, and I was crying, laughing. I wish I was exaggerating just because I've been in those meetings and be like, yep, that is exactly what it sounds like when someone's trying to pitch you on something wild. But anyway, I truly, this is really about Nic Cage's performance, and he does such a good job of this. I know I am a sucker for Nic Cage, and so I'm coming into this with a bit of a bias on that, but I do think that, for people who struggle with the wilder version of Nic Cage, this film only kind of treads into that territory when it absolutely makes sense. He's in this like terrible hairpiece in it, although let's be honest, there's a possibility that might be what his hair actually would look like without intervention, but he still kind of looks like Nic Cage, and it's hard not to see that. But there are times when he acts with this just softness, and you see like the code switching he goes through and the various ways that he interacts with people when he goes through his sort of stages of fame. And I was like, it's a really nuanced performance. And I was reading a bit of the production notes, and like, these are things that Nic Cage has experienced, and so he can tap into in that. I don't think he's been overtly canceled, but he's been popular, he's been unpopular. So I think he was actually really able to channel that really well. So I had a great time. I would actually say, very rarely do I say this, but I would say watch the trailer, and if this sort of vibe works for you, I encourage you to go see this movie. If you feel utterly repulsed by the idea of it, I can't make you go see it, but I truly, really thought it was a great commentary on, the current state of how one can have a meteoric rise and fall. So I'm going to give this a 4.5 out of 5. And the last film I have this week is called The Killer, and this is one where I'm almost going to contradict myself in terms of like, going with expectations, blah, blah. I could not help it. I had medium to high expectations for it because it's from David Fincher, who has done some of my favorite films. He's also done films I really haven't enjoyed, so he's a great example of, someone who, there's a spectrum there, and it can go either way. It stars Michael Fassbender as the killer, and I think the challenge with this movie is that I don't mind a film at all with an unsympathetic lead. I don't mind an anti-hero. I don't mind whatever you want to call it. However, there has to be a good story or a compelling story or, some sort of development along the way. And so I did not find that in this. Ironically, it's so almost monotone that I called it serial killer ASMR for a bit because there's just a lot of pontificating in it, and there are scenes where people are in a conversation together, but it actually just feels like two monologues happening in the same place and time, and that is not the most fun watch. Maybe I missed something here and there's a bigger layer to it or whatever, but I've seen some of his quieter, softer stuff, and I I don't think this is it, which is a bummer because, like I said, I went in with relatively high expectations because I'm a big Fincher fan, and I think David Fassbender is an excellent actor, and if you see some of his particularly darker roles, like he's so good in them and could play a serial killer probably pretty well. But there was something about this film that just did not resonate with me. And I don't know if it's also because he didn't write it or, anything along those lines, but it's a bummer. There's one sequence in it that I saw the potential of the movie unfold, and I went, oh, if we had this and had a more compelling structure to the rest of it and story and like progression, this would have been an amazing film. But because it's only this capsule moment, like if that had been a short, I would be like, this is the best short I've seen in a long time. However, because there's a lot more tacked on to the beginning and end, unfortunately, this was not for me. I can't really, in good conscience, recommend it. I'm going to give it a 2 out of 5.